This is Brand Rescue, a marketing and PR podcast for businesses who want the real deal, not trendy fluff or complicated funnels. From PR to paid ads, we share free advice that actually works because mediocre marketing is so last season. If you're ready, your marketing comeback starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's interview is actually two guests, which I'm really excited to introduce you to. We couldn't have one without the other because they've both got a really interesting piece of the pie here. So I want to introduce you our guests today. They're the co-founders of PitchWell, which you're going to learn about. Meet Rebecca Cafiero and Katie Passarello. Hey ladies, welcome to the show.
So excited to be here.
Hello. Awesome. So glad to have you. I love to kick these off and give everybody an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit about both of you and kind of who you are, how y'all know each other, what is PitchWell like? Give us the scoop about you two first. So who wants to kick us off?
Do we kick it off, Katie, to our meet cute and then go from there?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to do our best I'm going to do my best to be concise. Katie is much better. I'm Rebecca Cafiero, and I am Oregon farm girl, the Californian. I left Oregon when I was like 22, the day after college. But my little backstory is I have a degree in journalism and worked at a daily paper for years. I've always loved storytelling and then realized that I needed to keep a bartending job to pay for my journalism habit. So I went into the dirty world of sales and marketing like at 23, and I spent 13 years in the corporate area, kind of went up the ranks to VP of sales and marketing, oversaw about $1 billion in sales in real estate, and then became an entrepreneur. You know, the classic like leave corporate, burnt out story. And I was in entrepreneurship as a executive or growth coach for about 2 years. And I realized that I wanted to stand out more. And I kind of dusted off the old journalism skills. And I'm like, I think I need PR, but I never studied PR. So I met with a few agencies and I asked a lot of questions around sales and conversion around, okay, if I'm investing this money, how is this going to convert into more leads, more clients, et cetera? And I just didn't get answers that I felt good with. So I decided to try it on my own, which I know is not what, a PR agency should say or a PR agency owner, but I just kind of threw myself into it and failed forward. And about a year later, one of my clients said, how are you getting all these publications? I was starting to appear on podcasts. So one is PR is very important. We absolutely, obviously have built a platform around that. But I always was really more focused on like the sales and growth side than the PR side. But visibility was the differentiator. And after a couple of years of this, I started having more and more clients asking me, can you do PR for me? And I was like, I don't want to do PR for them. I want to focus on business growth, products, offers, services. That's like my genius. But I saw so many people that we taught our processes to, and they still didn't want to do it on their own, which is why agencies need to exist. And then I met Katie, but the way I met her is we lived on the same street, but didn't know each other because she had been away at college and I was busy having a baby. And then it was 2020 and we got an invite. It was June of 2020. We got an invite to a neighborhood graduation in a front yard. I was like, oh my gosh, we can see people. And that's when I met Katie giving the commencement speech for her twin brothers. So Katie, I'll let you kick it off from there.
Clearly, I was trying to fill my time during COVID, but Rebecca and I met at this moment when I was about to be leaving for Spain for a Fulbright scholarship. I had walked away from equity at a fintech startup where I had been working in marketing, and much of that role was also in the PR side. The fintech I was at was a really small company, and we had a female founder, which in fintech is also not common. It's a very male-dominated industry. And so I was incredibly passionate about getting that female founder a seat at the table, whether it was panel discussions, speaking engagements, podcast interviews. We know the power of podcasting, as well as the correct media placements, both to promote the actual product we had, but to promote her as well as a true thought leader in fintech. And so when I met Rebecca and she told me that she only worked with female founders, it was really an exciting moment for me. So even though I moved to Spain and even though I was pursuing a Fulbright, I kind of came under Rebecca's wing to continue to learn the PR side that I was already dabbling in at the fintech startup, but then to also help her create this agency that was a little bit against the grain in many ways because We had kind of scrambled together the ways to do it, and we were able to systematize it over the course of several years. And now we do have a full service agency for the PR side. We work with a lot of wonderful brands, but what we're doing now is kind of the next iteration of that, which I'm really excited to dive into. Right, there's a lot of changes happening in the PR landscape, so
Well, and what's also
Yeah.
cool on the
eager.
agency side is we mostly, all female founders, mostly a lot in health and wellness, both product based, service based. Worked with a few publishing houses on helping like authors launch books. But my husband had a startup he sold, and we were preparing for a sabbatical in Italy, which is where I am now. And so I started to wind down all of my coaching programs, my masterminds, my group programs. I used to do yearly events, large events. And the only part we were going to leave open was the agency. That's it. Because Katie could run it. And I was like, I can still enjoy my vacation, maybe take on one or two one-on-one clients. And in creating all that space, I kept asking myself, I had two major things I needed to solve. One was, where in Italy were we going to live and when were we going? And the second was, what do we do with obviously the agency side was like fully running, fully booked out. But I was like, what do I do with all of these visibility courses that I've created, like the profitable podcast guest, the media magnet, these very much teaching business owners to DIY. And that was always my goal, is not to take away business from agencies, because agencies are amazing, but really to help the smaller business owner that doesn't have the budget
Right.
to get to the point with
Yeah.
visibility where they could have the income to afford an agency, because
Yeah.
they need to
Exactly.
focus on their genius. So in creating all that space, it actually created space for me to tackle that problem. The first kind of idea came, and then, literally I was like, I would never, like, I won't do this without Katie. I want to give Katie massive credit. She knows way more about PR than I do, because as soon as she came in and she started working with clients, I just focused on the business growth side with the
Mhm.
visibility lens. But she was the one that has worked with, some really big clients. Some of them we can't name, but some really big clients in the online space. We worked with the co-founder of Boss Babe. We've worked with some New York Times bestsellers, and so I was like, you know everything about PR, and she's way more organized than I am. So I get to stay in the visionary role while she like makes it all happen. But this idea came forward, and we said, we want to create something that utilizes AI to expand the human potential, but not to replace the human voice. That's really important, as both of us being, you were an editor at your college journal, right?
I was
Yeah.
the design editor at my college publication and the editor in chief of my high school publication.
That's cool.
So we wanted to retain the human voice, but we also wanted to not only take the processes that we've created over the years, but also like, how do we make this easier for small business owners who, let's be real, there's a million things to focus on. And while everyone knows they need visibility, like they're focused on client fulfillment, they're focused on sales, they're focused on creating social media content. And that's like the top three out of a list of 5,000. And visibility, while it is a should do, it rarely gets done. And it really gets done in a consistent manner. And so we said, how can we create a tool that really solves this problem without it taking a lot of time, and also really gives accessibility to visibility to people that wouldn't normally have it? And Katie can talk about the time frame, because when we locked in, we have moved very fast.
Okay, wait, I have one quick question. For the agency
Yeah.
side, the agency is actually done for you. So for that side of the bit, y'all are actually doing the pitching, all of the partnerships, all that good stuff.
You want to talk about our pitch model is a little different than most agencies, Katie?
Yeah, so we do have our biggest clients who, as we know, don't have the time, the bandwidth to do any pitching on their own. However, we do have an option, and it's more of a hybrid model, particularly for podcasting, actually, for some of those founders that are kind of in that middle place. Like they're like, I need to dip my toes in PR, but I'm not ready to fully commit to a massive PR retainer yet. And so we do a hybrid approach where we help them select the podcast that they need to be guesting on. We help them connect with the hosts in a more intimate fashion, and they ultimately are the ones that send the pitches. So it changes the game a little bit, because we're kind of no gatekeeping in that sense. They get to own the relationship with the podcast, but it does give them the opportunity to understand how challenging it can be,
Yeah.
but then also the opportunity to really learn, so that they're able to kind of value the visibility side and the PR side even more.
Love how, and I mean, I'm an agency person myself. I love how the agency space is evolving. Like it used to be such a traditional of like, you pay us this never ending retainer. We do it all for you. You read the reports we send you. Thanks. Have a nice day. If you can't afford us, then bye. So I love watching how this is all evolving. And especially, I mean, you guys are like in it so deeply that I'm sure that's probably where this idea came from. So sorry, I jumped in the middle of that. But
No.
so then there came an idea. Who's gonna take this part? Katie?
Yeah, Katie, you can
Sure.
go over the time frame of when it all
I'll
started.
I'll jump in on time frame. So I think the precursor, quick context to that is the visionary piece, which is Rebecca, right? And that's why she's so good at what she does. Is she truly just has a different ability to understand where your business needs to go, where your idea needs to go, where your career needs to go in my case. And so she came to me, we had been noodling on what's the next iteration of the pitch club? Where is this going? And so Rebecca actually came to me with a full on business idea and was like, actually, instead of just evolving the pitch club, I have an entirely new idea that I'm ready to put onto the ground in motion. And this was back in like end of May, I want to say. And so and I usually don't get blindsided by Rebecca. I think we're like constantly in communication, but I was like very happily surprised by this sort of business proposal of, hey,
Well, I
I
think
actually
that
want to take this in
you
a
and I had
slightly
both
different
had like weeks
direction.
off or something. And it was like Katie's week off, which I was trying not to bother her. I had 6 hours in the car over 2 days with ChatGPT and it came up. And then I built a business plan and then I pitched it to Alexa, actually, who's a dear friend that introduced us, and my husband and my attorney, who's like a top Silicon Valley business attorney who also is a founder. I pitched to all three and they were all like, yes. And then I didn't do anything for a week, which Katie knows that's not normally me. I'm like, we built the thing to offer. It's being sold within 48 hours. But I sat on it for a week because we were going on vacation in Hawaii, and I just was like, let me just digest this deeply. And then I said, okay, Katie, I would never do this without you. So you wanted to join?
Pretty much. And so that's sort of how we started the next journey with PitchWell, kind of getting started on that. We have an incredible team, small team. Obviously, we're bootstrapping and moving along, but we did bring in an incredible software engineer who is also Rebecca's nephew. She just sees the brilliance in people and brings them in under her wing. So he has done all of the software development side of things. And then we also have a wonderful growth and partnerships lead, you could call her, but she's more than that. She does a lot of our email marketing. She's really great with the idea side, looking at partnerships. So we've grown a team, but we started developing in June. And when did we launch, Rebecca? Officially in August?
We did all our wireframing in June. We were like, what is the transformation that we're creating? What is the solution? And how should the product make sure that we do that, but don't overcomplicate it? Because this isn't, I mean,
Hmm.
well, yes, absolutely. We have agencies using the platform. We're like, how do we help that small business owner that does not understand PR? So we wireframed in June. That started getting coded in July. We did a small friends and family beta in first week of August. And then like a week later, like crazy people, because I was moving to Italy. So we had a very tight time frame. We did a beta launch. I think we brought in like our first 40 paid users. And then we kind of spent September and October really refining based upon our initial beta users and in client interviews we had done with them on what was working, what wasn't, where was their tension. And then we just started doing workshops in like late November. So the November, December, and now we have a bunch in January. And what we realized from an early standpoint is we're not trying to go after the individual users. Like we're not trying to sell the individual business owners. We are going into communities where there are hundreds or thousands of those people. And the
Hmm.
community holder already understands the importance of visibility and wants to give their community a leg up. So yeah, so we have some really exciting things in the work that I don't know if we're completely allowed to talk about yet, but some of the biggest female communities, obviously, it could be it doesn't have to be female, but some of the biggest female communities that you'll be seeing us at their events and in partnerships are already getting locked in this year.
Well, it's very, I mean, the PR industry is very highly dominated by females. So I am not surprised by that. But maybe give us the scoop a little bit about what is PitchWell? What does it do?
Go for it, Katie.
So PitchWell is a peer operating platform. So when we think about founders, whether it's an entrepreneur who is launching something for the first time or a practitioner who is not at a place yet where they can bring in an official agency, but need to start getting that media momentum, PitchWell offers them an online platform where they can bring their ideas as simple as this is the product that I have or as developed as I just read this story in Forbes and I need to figure out how to respond to the journalist. So they all scopes and sizes of ideas, and using our pitch generator, they can actually create a pitch that matches the type of media that they're looking to secure. So if it's a podcast pitch or a journalist pitch or a producer, right, for TV. We kind of have a lot of other options on there too, but those are our main ones. And so they're able to generate pitches that use actually a lot of our agency templates. So they're structured in a way that we know works well to communicate with the media. And so the pitch generation helps refine their idea, set up the proper structure. And then once they move through the pitch generation phase, they can actually use through AI get matched with the proper contact. So again, if they're looking for podcast hosts, they can use some keywords and based on their topic ideas and the pitch itself, Winsley, who's our AI, will actually match them with the right podcast host so that then they can go out, hit send on that pitch and through email integration, reach out to the right podcast host, journalist, editor, etc. And so it gives them some of the media training of like, okay, this is how I like articulate my ideas and it
Mm-hmm.
also gives them the opportunity to connect with the right decision makers in media and in podcasting.
I think it's really important because, I think Katie and I have some strong opinions on AI, and we've been teaching it. Like the thing is we have been utilizing AI for 2.5 years. Like I started teaching it back in 2023, right when ChatGPT first came out. Um, but AI is meant to expand the impact, but it's not meant to replicate or to replace the voice. And so what we're not trying to create here is like, oh, AI is going to make me sound like an expert. We're trying to reduce the tension point between the expert, the source, the voice or the face, and the person that ideally wants their knowledge. And that's what we're trying to fix. Like we're not trying to help them when they're, we can help them, but when they're showing up on the interview or the podcast or they're answering, the journalist questions, like the goal is not to have that be AI generated. It's just that in between point. So I think that's a really important piece of it. But I will say our clients that are utilizing PitchWell, which we have a few hundred now, clients that are paid clients that are utilizing the program, they have felt like it's such an unlock, not only because it puts them right into contact without paying, we won't name platforms, but some of the exorbitant fees that, even PR agency owners, like the fees are wild to have those contacts. A lot of people are
Ridiculous.
working off like an old list that, people have moved publications. So to remove that gate from them, but it's also to validate the ideas they already have. And then the last part, I think that's very important is, and we teach this in some of our workshops, is not just can I get a great pitch out there with an idea, but how does this actually bring visibility back to my product, service, or offer? Because we're teaching them what is the problem that your product, service, or offer solves? What is the goal of the end user or the buyer? And then how do you have thought leadership or create visibility around that problem and solution? And that way, whether someone's like seeing you on TV, whether they're hearing you on a podcast, whether you're reading about you, they're reading about something that the path leads back to your actual services. And that's how we create, visibility that actually builds profit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I own a freaking PR agency, and we've had so many clients. I love telling the story of we got the guy on the cover of a magazine, and he was so unimpressed, and it was like a 3-page spread on him and his family and everything. And he said, "Yeah, that's cool, but like, how much money did I make off that?" And I was like, "Dude, you don't get it. You don't get it. No one's gonna march in your store with this magazine in their hand and say, 'Hi, I'm here to spend $676.32 because I saw this on the cover of this magazine, and now I inherently trust you.'" It doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
dude. It doesn't work that way, but I know there is value in positioning you as the thought leader and the go-to person for him in that region, in that industry, And I think that now even more so, everybody's like freaked out about AI saying like, "Oh, Whitney, AI is gonna like close your PR business." And I'm like, "No, darling.
No,
Actually,
I know
PR just
we're gonna
became
we're gonna talk about how
10
it's more
times."
important than ever. But I want to respond, Whitney, to what you just said about there's some like for example, if somebody's doing speaking or in podcasting, one of the ways we can track is if you have a lead magnet or you have an offer code, if you have a physical product, then you actually can track it back. I'll give an example. I have a lead magnet that I only utilize on podcast and when I public speak. And so I know if I'm an event and I'm speaking in front of an audience of 100, like I spoke at Mom 2.0, And so that day I had 67 opt-ins to the lead magnet. And so I had a special response prepared because I'm like, anybody coming in from the lead magnet today is from this event. That event turned into 2 different clients for my mastermind. So that was like $70,000 in a 30-minute speech. I know that income came from that appearance. But I'll give an example of one of our PitchWell clients, Katie, who is a designer. And she's like, ended up pitching a local publication, a local magazine, got in it. A builder saw it that she had wanted to work with, ended up reaching out to her. And so this is like a builder developer. And she's like, while that didn't bring her any normal design clients, that brought her a partnership with a builder that will create like long-term revenue. And so it's not always like, okay, the episode aired and I just had thousands of dollars come in. Sometimes it's the differentiation. Sometimes it's opening a door, and that's where the visibility or comes from.
Oh, 100%. I always say, marketing is like playing checkers where you immediately you're jumping, you're actively working to get to the other side. Chess, PR is like playing chess. It's a much longer game. We're talking about what do people think and feel about you and your business till the end of time. We're trying to set it up where you become so well known or your credibility is so high that business comes to you because you are just known as the leader in that industry. So no, it's not going to happen overnight, but I do know and now, like you said, with it's actually becoming even more valuable now, and it's kind of leveling the playing field, I would say, to get some visibility without millions of dollars behind PPC.
Katie, I'd love Katie, if you want to talk
Definitely.
about high domain authority and like how, because you've really studied that, and then I can talk a little bit about how AI is going to change search, which I think is like something people are talking about it, but I don't think most business owners know about this.
Yeah, yeah. I'll touch on that in just a second because one thing, Whitney, that you just mentioned that I think is incredibly important is this concept of chess. I think that's great. If you don't mind, I will be using that moving forward when I have to explain the difference between marketing and PR specifically. And, and this ties into what we're about to talk about, but truly, we're looking at founder narratives. We're looking at reputation management. We're looking at recall, recognition, things that email subject lines and other marketing tactics are not going to necessarily be able to move the needle on. This earned coverage, third party validation is what over the long term makes the difference between a mediocre and a standout individual thought leader, founder, brand owner, however you want to name them. So love that. I will be using that in my back pocket. And talking about high domain authority, what's kind of changing now, and I'm sure you're also seeing this, Whitney, on your side, is with AI search and the way that we as humans are making buying decisions, more so than ever, we're actually looking at AI to guide our decision making, right? We're using some of these LLMs to say, okay, I need like 7 gift ideas for Mother's Day, right? And so instead of going the more traditional route, we're looking now on some of these LLMs. But where are these LLMs getting their information? Well, they're getting it obviously through searching the internet, aggregating data, looking at what is showing up when your question is searched through those LLMs. And so more important than ever are brands and founders getting out into high domain publications because that is how the AIs will understand who they are. And so the more that their products, their stories show up in the media, the more that they will also show up in many ways on the AI side. And so that's something that we really have been studying recently and know that it's going to change the way that founders are searched. And it only makes PR more important because that's not something that you can just do on your own. There's a lot of strategy behind that.
Totally.
Yeah,
And
and
you know what I
if people
think? Oh, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
To speak to the LLM thing, I think also too the differences is that LLMs are able to measure sentiment, right? Like
Mm,
Google is going to bring up whatever you ask. It's like a checklist, but an LLM is actually like in the craziest amount of time, like reading all of your mentions and analyzing the sentiment too. So I think that that's like something that I mean, Google can do that, but the LLMs are like focusing more
it's
on
much better.
sentiment.
And it
Way more
also, like, for
potent. So again, the
businesses that
reputation management.
Exactly. I would say for businesses that haven't, invested heavily in SEOs or in AdWords, right? Because it used to be very much a pay to play game of where you showed up in a Google search. But as Katie was saying, when you're searching, recommendation, one is we have a very different relationship with our ChatGPT, our Claude, our Gemini, whoever, whatever LLM we're using, because we feel like it knows us. It knows our preferences because we've given it so much information. And so when we get a suggestion, one, it's typically much better than we're going to get from a Google search. But here's the thing I just really want to drive home is Google search converts at 1%. So that means that, link click-through rate to someone purchasing the thing that they Googled is 1%. LLMs are measuring currently, and this is as of January of 2026, between 11 and 17% click-through rate to conversion. So that means that, well, yes, I haven't looked at the recent stats. When I looked last, Google search was still much more prevalent than someone searching an LLM, but the rate of conversion is so much better. And as Katie said, it is weighting the fact that we don't know, there's so many AI avatars out there that if anything, PR is important because it shows you're a real person. If you've been on a podcast, you're a real person, at least for now. It's going in some scary places, but it's showing you're a real person. And AI is also looking to make sure, is this source or this product that we're showing, like where has it been shown to be authentic, legitimate, et cetera. And so it is more and more important. I will say I saw ad the other day on Instagram, and I don't remember the name of the company, but it was talking about podcasting. And it was like for podcast hosts. It was like, oh, this is going to make your podcasting so much easier. And now I'm always looking, just like you, I use Riverside. So I'm like, because magic clips and all these things that have simplified the process and made what we do more powerful and more simpler. And then I looked at it, I'm like, the promise was in 15 minutes, you get to build a podcast avatar. You upload a couple of things. It writes, records, like basically it creates an avatar of you podcasting. So you can put out an entire year of content without ever showing up on the mic. And I was like, that is the opposite of what we should be doing here. The idea is whatever we're doing should save us the time so we can actually show up in podcast because that is our voice. Like we shouldn't be duplicating anything that, I have a strong opinion here about if you are a personal brand, a thought leader, you should not be having AI speak for you. You should not have AI showing up as you in your photos and your videos. Maybe it's a different if you're a product-based brand, but it's a really dangerous, I think, what do you call it? Slope. A dangerous slope if you are trying to replicate yourself because then you are no longer the human behind the brand.
And I really don't even think it's just for thought leaders and entrepreneurs. Like, I think I did a solo episode on this a couple months ago about like thought leadership is one tactic. Because, for different businesses, different types of industries, we do a lot of marketing as well. Even though we're PR, but we do a lot. Everything's so integrated now. It's like there's different tactics that work for different industries. But I do think one tactic that really does cross every line is thought leadership. And it's like, even if you're a freaking plumber, if you become the plumber that everyone knows his story about how he was born here and he did this and he lost his mom and you know what I mean? Like people become attached to these stories and they want
Right.
to work with people that they feel like they know. And like 20 years ago, nobody knew who the CEO of Coke was or whatever the biggest companies were back then. But now look at us, like we're like deeply following like Steve Jobs has cancer and Jeff Bezos is getting a divorce and like Elon Musk is this. We didn't even care who owned big companies 20, 30 years ago. And now everybody's like deeply invested in business owners. And that's how they decide where they want to spend their money. So I feel like personally, even PitchWell and just like pitching thought leadership for exposure really is so much more than just personal brands and entrepreneurs.
And I want to go back to something you just said about even the small business owner. My stepdad and now my little brother's taken over the business is a water well driller. That is like the most blue collar job. Like we're talking, most of those businesses don't have websites or Yelp. Like it's just they're still operating in a different kind of mode. Oregon, where I'm from, is passing some crazy water restrictions. And my little brother went on Facebook. He doesn't have Instagram, even though he's like 30, 32. He went on Facebook and did a Facebook Live trying to educate people. And he doesn't have a big Facebook. He probably has a few hundred followers that are mostly like school friends, church. He went viral and it got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. And long story short, over about a 3-day period, almost 4 or 5,000 people joined a Facebook. He put people in a Facebook group. He's like, I don't know how to deal with this. So he just like, if you have questions or want more, here's the Facebook group, where he started going live on a continual basis. He showed up on TV, publications. He called me and I was like, do you want me to help you with this? Because here's some advice I have. Like, stop staying up till 3 a.m. trying to respond to every comment, right? Just like educate people this way. But it just goes to show, one, how powerful visibility is. And he knew nothing about visibility. He wasn't trying to go viral. He was just trying to educate people, right? Trying to solve a problem. But it also is how important it is even for small business owners. The plus side, and this was not his purpose behind this, is people trusted him. And now he is like, he literally had hundreds of calls for jobs, meaning to drill wells, hundreds of calls. So did that create an incredible business opportunity? Yes, that wasn't his purpose though. But it's pretty incredible how powerful visibility is. And I think that there's so many business owners that don't realize that yet, because they still think that visibility is something that they're not quite ready for.
Or they don't want to sign up for that. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, I just want to own a business and then just like disappear into the background. And I'm like, maybe some businesses you can get away with that because everything is like a digital lead gen or something like that. But I go straight to the About Us page. When I look at a business, I go straight to the About Us page because I want to see their faces, or like, love when they show they have 3 kids or they met in high school or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Especially brands that want to target younger millennials and Gen Zers, you've got to be okay with being somewhat visible, but also I think that generation is cool with that, especially Gen Zers, because they literally don't know life without someone like sticking an iPhone camera in their face since the moment they're born.
Mhm.
And so they expect other people to be okay with it too.
And as much as
Mhm.
technology has changed, what hasn't changed is, in fact, like you said, Gen Z, it's even more important of know, like, and trust. And with all the AI and not like knowing what is real, showing up imperfectly, like that was actually one of the things this podcast said. You'll never have ums and ahs. You're like, yes, but we're human beings. Even professional speakers will occasionally say and ah. And now our brain is like being rewired to actually look for the humanness in everything we're seeing, because we don't know what is real or not.
It's wild. And I do think that if we don't make a concerted effort to keep it real, then people are going to start glossing over when they're consuming data and media, but we're going
Mhm.
to, right now, we assume everything is real, but we check just in case. But I think it's going to flip flop where we assume everything is fake until it's proven to be real. And how do you prove something to be real? I don't know. We need
Well,
to come back and
we
listen to this
assume that
episode in
media
like 10
has, I think people still assume that, like, if something is in media, not saying, listen, like, we all know, like, fake news, but like, if when we're not talking current event politics, we all do assume if something is on TV, that's a real person being interviewed. If someone is in a publication, we assume that the journalist or the publication has done some type of vetting. And so I don't think that has changed. So as long as there's publications out there, which hopefully there will be for at least the next few decades, there still will be that level of differentiation or legitimacy from media.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think something that is also really important with this is, you know, those big publications, when we've had stories where our clients have been featured in big stories, and we've had journalists ask for tax returns and proof of purchase, and when you're getting into some serious stories, and so that's important. And as long as that sticks around, then the human is going to have to dominate, because the AI is not going to have a proof of purchase for something that doesn't exist.
love that you got fact checked that hard. You know what I
Business
mean?
Insider, which good for them. It was a story. They were doing a profile actually on me, and they literally asked for, they wanted, before they made a claim of my level of my business, they literally were like, we want to see, basically receipts. We want to see receipts.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
amazing. And I was
Mhm.
like, good for you guys, because I got my degree in the day that we still needed 3 sources.
I literally had a legitimate media company run a story on a client probably 2 or 3 months ago, and it had so much false information in it. So they just like just straight up, they claimed that this person bought a building. He did not. He didn't own that building. I mean, it was like wild, some of the stuff that I cannot believe that they ran. And I asked for their source and they said, well, they interviewed his employees. And I said, the employee told you that he bought that building, so you just ran it for hundreds of thousands of people to see in the media. There will be a massive lawsuit about that, not coming from me, but what a mess. Thank God for fact checking, though. That's
Yeah.
actually
Well,
super refreshing.
and hopefully, I mean, hopefully that journalist, it was, I mean, obviously there was some negligence there. Hopefully, I would say the excuse is probably journalist or what, overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid. And that is part of what we're trying to solve with PitchWell is there's a lot of terrible pitches out there. I mean, we see them. You have a podcast. I'm sure you see them. We get terrible pitches. We also, I mean, Katie, you could probably speak to this more than I can because Katie has like a lot of besties in the media world that come back to us or come back to Katie because they're like, this is so refreshing. Your sources are well prepped. The pitches are spot on. You're on our beat. And so they want to come back to us because they know what they're getting. And I mean, Katie, you can talk about that, but that's the goal of PitchWell is, again, to reduce that tension, to connect someone in a way that is refreshing for the journalist to give them more time back.
Yeah, it's really just like helping them. They speak two different languages, right? A journalist needs the information like A, B, C, and the entrepreneur has information, but it's one, two, three. So it's like, no, no,
Mhm.
it sounds like Pitchwell literally just helps them speak the language of the journalist because they have what the journalist wants. They just don't know how to deliver. First of all, they don't know how to get in touch with them. Secondly, they don't know how to deliver the information that makes it palatable and convenient for the journalist to use, you know? And I always say this, I'm like, PR is really not that hard. I'm not going to claim to be a freaking genius. I'm really not. But you learn the nuances, you learn the tactics, you speak the language, and you know how to find the hook. Oh, and then once you build your contacts, it's just being relentless and staying on top of it.
True.
And being creative with what you see in the news and being able to respond accordingly. I think you're very good at what you do, Whitney. You are, I would say you're close to genius level in terms of
Oh,
the PR side. It's not as easy as it
She's
sounds,
being
but I
humble,
think
Whitney. You're being humble.
I know.
well, it's one of those things, once you know it, you can't unknow it. So then you're like, trying to go back in your own mind before you knew something is impossible. You know what I mean? And so it's like once you get it, it's like riding a bike. Once you get it, you get it. And riding a bike's
Mhm.
easy, right? So like, but it's fun. And I feel like every day is different. And I will say this, PR is different than any other arm of marketing, anything in that entire realm, because your job is never done, right? In marketing, like we've posted, sent out all the email blasts, we've launched the PPC ads, we've whatever. You can check things off your list. With PR, there's always more opportunity. There's always more angles. There's always more media. There's always more podcasts. It's like an endless well of opportunity, you know? And
Mhm.
so I always tell people that want to work in PR, I'm like, you've got to be okay with never really being like, wow, my list is done. My list is fully done. You'll never get there because there's
No.
always opportunity. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I mean? But constantly knowing uh, that there is something out there. If something doesn't come through, if something doesn't work out, you just got to keep going and keep pitching, you know?
Mhm.
I was gonna say, Katie, I feel like you should talk about our client, Catherine, Katie's client, Catherine. But like, this is just an example of like where both the support of the agency, the knowledge of the agency, but also a source that is responsive and takes charge and has like opinions. Like it gets so powerful because you can talk about it, but it's a client that would not have been able to normally do a agency retainer. And so what we do, but really now what Pitchwell is doing, like creates such an opportunity for someone to be more visible.
Yeah. So, just as context, we had talked a little bit earlier about how we sort of one of our packages is more of a hybrid approach where we're kind of working with some of the strategy, but then ultimately the thought leader or the founder is doing the execution in terms of the podcast that they're reaching out to, the publications that they're connecting with. And Catherine actually is a really great example of this. And she had published a book calling it off. Incredible. She walked away from her proposal or from her engagement 2 weeks before the wedding. Very interesting story. She's an incredible writer, she's thoughtful, she's now a mother, she's literally just a wonderful human. She's so detail oriented, she's so organized, but she didn't know anything about connecting with the media, and so we've worked with her since her book launch, which was almost a year ago now, And she has gotten a couple of bylines in some smaller publications. She's been quoted in some of the bigger ones. She's been podcasting across the run of the shows, right? She's been on relationship podcasts talking about the engagement. She's been on mothering podcasts now that she has had a young little one. And so, really just this having somebody behind the scenes on the PR side of advocating for her, reminding her that when she doesn't get a response from a podcast host, it's not necessarily rejection, right, Whitney? Like we know that like PR is the rejection game. We get lots of no responses, we get lots of no's, and so having an advocate for her was really helpful. But she was also able to do a lot of it on her own, which now she's about to go on mat leave for the second. She's having number two. She'll be able to come back and she can either pick up with us or she has enough know how that she can jump in on her own and be ready to just continue the process.
Yep. See, best of both worlds. It's like you find someone who really is a thought leader and you're just giving them the opportunity and the platform to make it really easy to connect with people. So, love
Hmm.
that so much. This has been so amazing. Thank y'all so much for coming on the show today. I want to give you the chance if people want to connect with y'all personally or if they want to learn more about PitchWell, give them the scoop.
www.gopitchwell.com, or you can go to our Instagram, Go Pitchwell, and you can sign up for a trial there. So you've got a couple days that you can practice and play with the platform and get pitches out. And what's really cool is we've had people come into like a workshop or come into a free trial and literally spend maybe an hour or two on it, generate a few really phenomenal pitches, go out, personalize them, send them to journalists. And I always joke, I said, anytime I demo the platform, I'll always send a pitch. Almost every pitch that I have sent while demoing, I have gotten a response back from either a journalist or a podcast host that I've actually booked the podcast and then aired on the podcast. So I like to show that, but we've had a lot of incredible wins. And again, it's across the gamut from, 30-year-old new business owners to 65-year-old children's book writers to service-based industry, like, and everything in between. And we're launching something really cool next week called, which, I mean, it'll be launched by the time the podcast is out, called Pitch for Good. Nonprofit founder or any active duty or military veteran, you have free access to the platform for life.
Love that. So cool. Wow. Well, thank y'all so much. And Katie, and Rebecca, if people want to connect with y'all individually, what's the best platform? Are you LinkedIn, Instagram? Like, how do you like to connect?
Katie.
LinkedIn gal, so Katie Passarello, KatiePassarello, long last name. Katie Passarello, LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
I'm trying to be more on LinkedIn, but I am definitely more of an Instagram girl right now. So at Rebecca Cafiero.
And we will drop all those links in the show notes for everybody if y'all want to connect with them or learn more about the platform. Thank y'all so much. It's such a great opportunity to chat with y'all about that. I love chatting with people who get it,
Well, thank you for letting us
Likewise,
be
this was
here
so
and talk about
fun.
PitchWell.
Yeah,
Thanks,
totally.
Whitney.
Of course. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Brand Rescue. For more practical marketing and PR support, head to yourmarketingheroes.com.